In 2026, there are teenage boys hitting their faces with a hammer in order to improve their looks. I'm not joking. There are entire communities dedicated to analyzing your canthal tilt, your gonial angle, your facial thirds, your jawline definition, your clavicular width, your shoulder to waist ratio, all in the pursuit of being more attractive. Now, these terms might not mean anything to you, but stick with me. These guys are going to surgeons to get their jaw restructured, getting fillers in their cheekbones, and some of them, as I mentioned, are literally hitting themselves in the face with a hammer, which is a real thing called bone smashing, because they believe it will reshape their bone structure. These guys are mocked constantly. People think this is insane behavior, a modern neurosis of sorts, something about social media and unrealistic standards that has broken an entire generation of young men. But what if it isn't new at all? What if the obsession with improving your looks, the anxiety about where you rank, the lengths people go to in order to look better, is not a modern invention? What if ancient humans were doing the exact same thing? And what if the consequences of being ugly back then were even worse than what they are today? Looks have always mattered, and ancient humans knew it. Let's start with something the looksmaxxing community understands better than most people want to admit. Attractive people get treated better. This is not controversial, it's documented. Attractive people earn more money. Studies show the top third in looks earn around 10 to 15% more than the bottom third. They're more likely to be hired, more likely to be promoted, more likely to receive lighter sentences in court, all sorts of things. Again, documented. One study found that when an unattractive criminal committed a moderate crime, their fines were 4 times larger than those given to attractive criminals for the exact same offense. And if you need a real-world example of just how insane this gets, look up Jeremy Meeks. In 2014, police in Stockton, California, arrested a guy with a long criminal record and posted his mugshot on Facebook as a routine public notice. Within 48 hours, it had been liked over 68,000 times. While he was sitting in a prison cell convicted of weapon charges, people were fighting over him. We call this lookism, and most people treat it like a modern problem, like something created by Instagram and Hollywood and unrealistic beauty standards pushed by media. But lookism did not start with Instagram. It didn't start with Hollywood. It didn't even start with real recorded history. In a prehistoric tribe, your looks didn't just affect your salary. They affected whether you ate, whether you had a mate, whether you were protected by the group or left on the outside of it, whether you survived. The looks hierarchy in a hunter-gatherer tribe was the most brutal version of lookism that has ever existed. The stakes were your life. So, in prehistoric societies, if you were born visibly wrong, deformed, asymmetrical, physically weak, there's a real possibility you didn't make it past your first day. It is estimated that in prehistoric hunter-gatherer societies, somewhere between 15 and 50% of all newborns were killed or abandoned at birth. A child who looked like they wouldn't survive or wouldn't contribute was a drain the group could not afford. A single deformity was sometimes enough. In Sparta, this was formalized. Newborns were brought before the elders and physically inspected. If they looked strong and healthy, they were allowed to live. If they didn't, they were taken to a cliff and thrown off. This was not just about survival ability. Physical appearance was directly linked to worth. A baby that looked wrong was a baby that might carry bad genes into the next generation. The group did not want those genes. The looks hierarchy starts the moment you are born. This is the most brutal possible version of lookism. You didn't even get to try. So now, ask yourself, if that was the world you lived in, if looking physically inferior was a death sentence from day one, what would you do to make sure you looked as good as possible? Anything. You would do anything. And that's exactly what ancient humans did, because they understood something the looksmaxxing community understands today. Looking good was not optional, and it never was. But let's talk about why. The looksmaxxing community talks a lot about hypergamy, the idea that people, particularly women, will try to mate with the highest status, most attractive partner available, and that this creates a brutal hierarchy where the most attractive people have unlimited options and everyone below them has to compete harder. This is not a modern concept. In a prehistoric tribe, the most attractive woman had the best options. She could choose the best hunter and she didn't have to settle. And for men, physical dominance and facial structure were directly tied to status. A strong jaw, a prominent brow ridge, or a wide frame weren't just aesthetic preferences, though that's what it would later become. They told the tribe, this man has good genes, high testosterone, he's survived, he's strong, he can protect you. What the looksmaxxers call a hunter eyes, forward maxilla, defined gonial angle face, the high status masculine face, that wasn't created by TikTok. That preference is baked into our biology from hundreds of thousands of years of selecting for those traits. That's where they got it from. The guys who had those features got the best mates. Their genes got passed on. The guys who didn't competed harder, tried harder, or, most commonly, lost out. So, if the hierarchy was real and looks determined your position in it, what did ancient humans actually do about it? Well, they practiced a thing that today falls under the term hardmaxxing. What the looksmaxxing community calls hardmaxxing is permanent, often painful physical alterations to your appearance. But some of the things ancient humans did make modern plastic surgery look mild. Start with the teeth. In various prehistoric cultures, people filed their teeth into sharp points for looks. They used stone tools and obviously had no anesthetic. They would grind down their own healthy teeth because a certain tooth shape was considered attractive or dominant. Now, compare that to the modern guy getting veneers to fix a minor imperfection under full sedation in a dental chair, reviewing his results in a mirror before he leaves. Ancient humans were doing more extreme dental work with a rock, voluntarily, in agony, because they cared that much about how they looked. Now, you tell me which one is more extreme. Now, the nose. We have evidence of nose reshaping going back to ancient Egypt. Papyrus scrolls from around 1600 BC describe procedures to reshape the nose. And in ancient India, around 800 BC, a physician was performing full nose reconstruction surgery. His technique involved cutting a flap of skin from the patient's cheek, slicing open where the nose was, and laying the cheek skin over it to form a new nose shape. Then, he would insert tubes made from castor oil plant to hold the nostrils open while everything healed. Again, no anesthetic. He was cutting your face open, peeling skin from your cheek, and grafting it onto your nose while you were fully awake. To them, it was worth it. Here's something the looksmaxxing community will recognize immediately. A thing called statusmaxxing. The idea that if you can't fully fix your face, you can boost your perceived attractiveness through status signals. Money, clothes, accessories, anything that says, I am high value, especially if your actual looks could not do the job for you. Ancient humans were also doing this 150,000 years ago. We found shell necklaces in Morocco dating back 150,000 years. These shells had holes punched through them, and they were worn. The key thing is that these shells were found far from the coast. Whoever made them either traveled a significant distance to get the materials or traded for them. There was no survival benefit for this, no sort of protection. The only function was signaling, I have access to rare things, I am worth paying attention to. So, we talked about the attractive side. Now, let's talk about the other side of this, the grim side. While the good-looking ancient human was mogging the tribe and getting their pack of mates and the best cuts of meat, what happened to the ugly ones? In a small hunter-gatherer tribe of maybe 20 to 50 people, there was nowhere to hide. Everyone knew everyone. Your looks were on display every single day to the same people forever. You couldn't move to a new city. You couldn't reinvent yourself online. You couldn't find a subculture where things were valued differently. You were stuck in a small group for your entire life. The low-status male, the one who got mogged constantly, who couldn't compete for mates, who didn't project dominance, had terrible options. Less food, worse sleeping spots, less of everything basically. The worst part was, you would potentially have no mate at all, which in a world with high child morality meant your genes ended with you. There's even evidence that physical appearance affected how much care injured or sick people received from their group. The more valued a person was, which was tied heavily to their usefulness and their attractiveness, the more likely others were to keep them alive. Being ugly in prehistoric times was a death sentence. So, when you zoom out, the looksmaxxing community, the cantle tilt analysis, the jaw surgery, the bone structure obsession, all of this looks insane from the outside, but it is not new behavior. It is not a product of social media. It is one of the oldest human drives in existence. Whether you like it or not, ancient humans did this. The tools have changed, the stakes are lower, but the instinct is identical. Ancient humans did not need a study to tell them how you look determines how you're treated. They lived it every single day in a tribe of 30 people with no way out. The only real difference between a modern looksmaxxer and a prehistoric human 300,000 years ago? Looksmaxxing is safer now. Am I saying you should get invasive surgery and break your bones? No, But to deny that all of this is real and that it has a real place in society is foolish. As Richard Dawkins put it, we are survival machines, robot vehicles blindly programmed to preserve the selfish genes inside us. We were never trying to look good for ourselves. We were always trying to look good for the competition.